Anybody look at the title of the sermon today? Anybody disagree with the title of that sermon? It's a scary world. We have a lot of anxious people right now. Not just in this country, but all over the world. As you know, most of Europe is shutting down, closing down. Not just in Europe, but in other places as well. I don't know if you know this or not, but it has been reported that in the last 10 years we have had more wars and conflicts than any time in world history. We have 33 million people in the world that have been displaced because of war, living somewhere other than their homeland. We have now more people dying of malnutrition than any time since records have been kept. But let's not just talk about the world. In Kentucky, we got 22% of the children in our state that are considered malnourished. In Kentucky, 45% of the women over 65 who are widows only collect Social Security to live on. How would you live on that? Our state is in the top 5 in terms of money it receives from the federal government for aid for poverty and food. Our state is in the top 5 in terms of the debt it owes that it cannot pay. It's a scary world out there. But let's not just go there. We have a country that now, according to the Wall Street Journal, is over $40 trillion in debt. $40 trillion in debt. It's a scary world. How are we going to maneuver it? What are we going to do about it? I get goosebumps, Dudley, just talking about it. Because in some ways we think this is the worst it's ever been. I want to tell you a true story. I don't know how you guys were, you ladies, but when I went on my first date, that was only the second time my daddy ever let me drive the car. And so I went to my daddy with fear and trembling and said, Dad, I'm going to go on a date. You are? I had gotten a job and I was making $5 a day. And I brought home $4.10, but that $4.10 would get us in the movie, buy popcorn and a drink. That's how old I am, young people. And so Dad said, okay. So I got ready, and he didn't give me the keys. He walked me out to the car. And before he gave me the keys, Mary, he patted me on the back. And I thought he was going to wish me well, whatever. You know what he did? Remember, son, you are my son, and you carry my name. In anything you do, I will find out before anyone else. Scared me to death. When I went off to college and I left home, as I was leaving, and he was taking me to the bus station because I didn't have a car, barely had a bicycle. Took me to the bus station. I got out, got my suitcase before I got on the bus. He looked at me, David, remember, son, you carry my name, I will know what you do because you represent me. And I carried those words for the rest of my life because he was right. I carried his name. What my father was doing was reminding me of who I was, how I was brought up, and what I represented. He was also reminding me that I was a vital part of his family. And he wanted people to know that he had taught me well. When I got my doctor's degree, when you get a doctorate, you have to write a book, a thesis. And it's in our library, but I wouldn't advise you reading it. You wouldn't understand it. But you got to write it that way in order to get your doctorate. Anyway, I got my book and I brought it home. And I dedicated it to my mother and my father. And my father said, "Get in the car." I got in the car. Now, I'm 30 years old, but my dad's still dead. Get in the car. So we got in the car. My dad went all over this little town, stopping at all his friends' place, taking my book out. They didn't even know what it was about. Couldn't even read it because it had a lot of Greek and Hebrew in it. Anyway, to make a long story short, this is my son. I'm proud of him. You know how that made me feel? Like a son. John 3:1. See what love the Father has given us, that we should be called the children of God. In the same way, you are part of a family, the most important family that you will ever have, the family of God. And as the children of God, how do we reflect on our Father? And how does our Father reflect on who we are? I don't know if you ever thought about this, but we call ourselves Christians. Do you know what that means? That we bear the name of Christ. We bear the name of Christ. The author of 1 John goes on to say, this is the message you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Remember whose child you are. Now, what does that mean for you and me? It should mean a lot on this All Saints Sunday, because our family doesn't just disappear when they're gone. They've died. They continue. And we don't forget them because they're not with us in the present. We remember them and remember what they said to us and what they taught us and what they believed in us. Now, I have to tell you that I've had other people in my life that probably influenced my life more than my parents. And I remember what they taught me and what they said to me. But as I remember all of this, and I remember who my Father is, what does that give me? Where does that lead me? It leads me to a joy and a peace that can never be taken away. We think we have it hard. In the 13th century, there was a city. It actually was, at that time, almost the kingdom of Christianity, where almost the entire city was made up of Christians. It was called Constantinople. And in the 13th century, it was attacked by an army from Turkey. Over 300,000 were either killed or put in slavery and brought back to Turkey. We think we've had it hard. We think we have it bad. This morning, Don was talking to us about Jesus' washing the feet of the disciples and what he was teaching them. What he was teaching them was being a Christian is not a bed of roses. It's hard. But you are to be the servant. And remember, you are following me. Do we remember that? Or do we get so caught up, we're ready to jump out the window? He's my Father, and you are his sons and daughters. And I will never leave you nor abandon you. I am with you always, even until the end of time. Do we believe that? Do we live that? I know that we live in a turbulent time. But my Father is my heavenly Father. It's not my money. It's not my world. It's not my government. He's my Father. And he leads me, yea, into the path of righteousness for his name's sake. He didn't tell us that this would be a bed of roses. No. Look what happened to our Christ. If it could happen to our Christ, what do you think it could do to us? It's a scary world. But is it any scarier than what Christians have witnessed in the past? No. And what happened? We celebrated them today, Dudley. All Saints Day. So in this scary world, get your priorities straight and understand that our Father is still our Father. And we are his sons and daughters. And he will never abandon you. He will never forsake you. He will never leave you. And one day he will reach out his hand and take you. Now my question to you, do you believe it? Then live it. It's your faith. It's your Father. It's your destiny. Thanks be to God who gives us the choice to be not afraid.